There's a lot of bad advice out there when it comes to ND filters for your drone, and today I'm going to talk about it. There are both standard ND filters and polarized ND filters, and we're going to cover both today. But first, let's start off with the standard filters. To put this as short and sweet as I can, ND filters are in practice used to basically extend the length of time that your shutter has to remain open in order for you to get a good shot. This is used primarily for artistic effects or for videographers to make sure that the frames are blending together with just the right amount of motion blur. They have a fairly minor effect on standard photos, but if I came out and said that they don't have any effect at all, I'd be a liar. I know we've all seen the videos that are targeted to new drone owners, especially those that just bought one of the Mini series that DJI makes. Go out and buy all the ND filters because you're gonna need them, otherwise you're not a super duper serious photographer. And then what typically happens is after you buy the ND filters, then the algorithm starts feeding you, ooh, I bumped the mic, didn't I? Then the YouTube algorithm starts feeding you videos explaining why you don't need ND filters to be a good photo or videographer. Words are hard, and I don't know about you, but that left me feeling a little bit baffled and, to be frank, pretty conned. So I'm going to set some things straight based off of my own personal experience. I've been a commercial drone photographer and videographer for all of 9 months, so I feel like I have enough experience to make a YouTube video that people will pay attention to, because it's the internet, why not? This first video looks pretty good already, but the frame rate is definitely noticeable. You can see that each frame transition seems kind of jagged, a little bit jarring, and it's just not very cohesive. It looks very digital. Whereas in this video, you can see that the frames kind of blend together a lot easier, and it's just all around more pleasing to watch. Now what I did in that second shot was I used an ND filter that was dark enough to bring my shutter speed down to a rate that was numerically twice the speed that I want my final video's frame rate to be. That's a little bit to take in, so let's break it down after I pick my teeth. Since this video is in 24 frames per second, I'm aiming for a shutter speed of right around 1/40th and 1/50th of a second. It doesn't have to be that exact, so don't be that guy that starts hating himself. Just get it to below hundredths of a second for 24 to 30 frames a second, or like around 200ths of a second shutter speed if you're wanting your video to be 60 frames per second. Just whatever frames per second you want your video, just double it and then put your frame rates at around that. When it comes to photography, the only time really that I would use a standard ND filter is if the subject that I was shooting was both really bright and really dark at the same time. Like, say for example, this shoot that I did of this mansion, or if I wanted some motion blur, like say if I wanted to get a shot where I wanted to make the waterfall look like it was just flowing infinitely, or if I was getting traffic and I wanted the cars to have a little bit of motion blur, stuff like that. Alright, real quick, let me stop the video right there. I'm going to apologize for the next clips. The audio has a little bit of a buzz to it. So that's the job of a standard ND filter. Now when it comes to polarized ND filters, they also have an additional feature. They do the same thing that standard ND filters do, but they also neutralize some of the refracted light rays that bounce up off of water or off of grass, off the side of buildings, off of vehicles, off of the road. They act just like polarized sunglasses. If you've ever used non-polarized sunglasses and then switched to polarized sunglasses, that's exactly what a polarized ND filter does for drone photography, possibly for all photography, but I'm not a ground level photographer, at least not yet, so we're not going to talk about that. And because of this feature, polarized ND filters actually do get used quite a bit whenever I go out and take photos of my local scenery, whether it's an old farmhouse, whether it's my downtown area. Almost always I'm going to have an ND filter on it. If I'm taking video, I'm going to do the frame rate trick, where I want my shutter speed to be double what my intended frame rate is going to be. Where I want my shutter speed to be double what my intended frame rate is going to be. Or if I'm just taking pictures and I just don't want the sun to be piercing the viewer's eye that much. How do I word that? If you'd like a direct example, take a look at these two videos that I took as well. One shot, you'll notice that the light that is directly refracting off the water, it's kind of bright, but also if you look into the sides of the pool, it almost looks like you can see a little bit down below the surface. However, in this next shot, you'll notice that the light directly refracting off the water into the camera, it's not quite as jarring, but it also, you can't really see that deep into that pool of water. I don't know if there's some sort of water effect going on that's kind of mixing up the polarization of the sunlight. It's weird because the one that's not getting as much sunlight is angled where there is no polarization according to the manufacturer. The one that is getting more sunlight refracted off is supposed to be properly polarized. Make it make sense, please. I don't know. Sunlight is f***ing weird. One last effect that standard as well as polarized ND filters have is they can color your images slightly differently than what they would come out naturally with no filter at all. But honestly, all of my photos are gonna get color graded anyway. Because of this, I don't really think that ND filters are an absolute necessity when it comes to getting started in drone photography or videography. Even if you do take faster videos on your drone, there's ways you can add in a little bit of motion blur in between those frames. It's not going to look as natural as actually reducing your shutter speed properly, but at least it won't be as jarring from frame to frame. If you know you're going to be color grading your photos and video after the fact, and you're not going for any sort of artistic shots, then I would say it is definitely a safe bet to just skip the ND filters for now. Just get your bird in the air, start getting some videos, start getting some photos, start having fun. Your drone will compensate for the exposure and be able to maintain a very, very good shot. So, does this help? Does this clear it up for you? Are you good to go now? You feel better?